there, it's Michelle Caramana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play. And I have another coaching call for you to listen in on today. And today I am speaking with Natalie Goodall, the owner of Playgrounds Cafe in Iowa. And not only was this call really fun to record because I love the topics that we discussed, which I'll tell you about in a minute, but it was also really interesting because Natalie brings a different perspective to the table in that Natalie works full time while she operates her business as the owner. Now, her business is fully staffed with some exceptions, which we're going to talk about throughout this call. But I get asked all the time if it is possible to work full time for whatever reason, whether it's financial reasons or not wanting to disrupt your career trajectory or benefits, whatever the case may be. I get asked all the time if it is possible to maintain full time employment while running a business. And Natalie is the perfect example that yes, it is possible. However, it comes with some nuances that you have to tackle. And again, we're going to get to all of that today. So in addition to that topic, we're also going to talk about things like booking more parties, so filling those empty party slots on your calendar, getting as much revenue as possible from parties currently booked. We're going to talk about staff communication and making sure everyone is on the same page and really motivating your staff to move your business forward and sell more and not just be warm bodies in the position, so to speak. Even when everybody is working different schedules and shifts, we are going to talk about so much throughout this call. And like I said, I really enjoyed this one and I hope you will too. So this call was actually recorded all the way back in August. So I would encourage you to go to the video description and check out what Natalie and Playgrounds Cafe is doing today, because if I know Natalie, she has already implemented a lot of what we're going to talk about, and I'm sure she's doing really amazing and fun things over there. So again, all of her information is linked in the video description. So check out Natalie's business, give her a follow, cheer her on. But without further ado, here is my call with Natalie Goodall, the owner of Playgrounds Cafe. Hi, Natalie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
I'm excited too, but before we get started, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah. So my name's Natalie Goodall. I own Playgrounds Cafe in Waukee, Iowa, which is a suburb of Des Moines, central Iowa. We have been open for 4.5 months, but have been on this journey for almost 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, kind of in
Wow,
between there.
time
So
flies.
yeah, time flies, but it also feels like it just started yesterday. So it's been quite the endeavor.
Yes. So, can you tell us a little bit about your business in terms of what ages you cater to, the sort of things you offer, just so we can have a starting point?
Yeah. So Playgrounds Cafe is a 3,500 square foot space. We have a full cafe, coffee shop that is also open to the outside, like to the public. And we have a kind of half wall that divides our play area and seating area that's reserved for our play guests, that caters to 0 to 6 year olds. Um, we see anywhere right now between like 15 and 40 kids a day. That's just children 0 to 6. Um, and we do birthday parties, 100% private parties. We don't have a party room. So we can do 4 parties every weekend. And that's kind of our main buckets between birthday parties, open play. We're starting to kind of get into classes. We've done one class that's been successful, a music class, and then kind of dabbled in events too. Feels like there's a lot of priorities. And so we have a lot of ways we can go and are still trying to figure out what is our thing.
Absolutely. I completely relate to that as somebody who changed what our thing was a couple times right at the beginning
Yeah.
until we found our footing and finally settled on birthday parties and specifically first birthday parties. I completely relate to that. Um,
Yeah.
it's a good problem to have is that there's so many different revenue streams we can tap into, but it's a blessing and a
Mhm.
curse because when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So
Yeah, and I have a hard time with that, trying to figure out like what can I just need to focus on this one thing and I need to do it really well and I want to do everything really well and also doesn't allow me to give up those things to other people. So, working on that, and that's I mean that's kind of a large part of what I wanted to talk about today too is just where do we go? because we have a lot of different avenues and really need to boost sales at this point. Um, and obviously coming off kind of a slow summer season, trying to figure out where our focus is as we go into the fall and winter.
Absolutely. So, did you have any specific questions that you wanted to start with, or do you just kind of want to start more general?
I think just more general, is kind of where I'm at right now. I feel like my head's in a lot of different buckets of priorities, and I'm working on your course with birthday party ads. We have no ads right now. I learned from you about that boosting an ad is not the same as actually running an ad. So that was a light bulb moment of, oh, I need to figure this out. And so kind of knee deep in that course right now and haven't actually like done anything. I feel like I'm learning so much and soaking up so much of that. And then also in the depths of listening to Clockwork for the second time now and trying to figure out how do we start to implement that. That's another background thing is I work full time as a interior designer for an architecture firm. So I work remotely in our back room. The cafe is out there. And so I'm always here, but I also have to focus on my full-time job because that's what pays me. And that allows a lot of stress off our shoulders financially, personally, which is great. So trying to, I feel like, yeah, knee deep in a bunch of different buckets, trying to figure out how do we make processes? How do we make birthday parties and ads and cafe and all this stuff? So,
Yeah, so if you, I
uh,
know you're kind of undecided right now, but have you thought about a main priority at least like for the next 90 days or something that you really want to promote for fall? Is it birthday parties or is it something else?
it's a good question. I think no, I haven't decided a priority. Everything feels like a priority right now. I think what our number one priority, what needs to like whatever I pick needs to feed into is sales. And I mean, maybe that's an obvious answer, but right now we started, unfortunately, had a very rough construction process and had a contractor that essentially took a lot of money that he shouldn't have and took all of our working revenue. And so right now we're kind of running on thin ice and trying to figure out how do we keep, we know what we need to make every day and we're not hitting that right now. And so how in my mind I'm thinking how can I get other things, birthday parties, memberships, how do we get those going so we don't have to rely on the daily, open play to make what we need to make every day? How do we get to, bring that number down through other streams of revenue? And so I guess that's really my focus, but I feel like I could go about that in so many different ways. And so trying to figure out what's the best way and how do I hone in on that and use my time efficiently to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really smart way of looking at it. First of all, is finding those other revenue streams so that you don't have to rely just on traffic because open play,
Mhm.
getting people in the door is always going to be the most fickle form of revenue, not just, in the summer, but also, we're in an uncertain economy. It's an election year. There's a lot of things in limbo right now, and open play and that open play traffic is always going to be the most highly affected by anything that fluctuates in the world. So I think it's really smart to be even thinking about that. And I have a couple thoughts, but before we kind of get into it, is there one thing right now that is really working in your business, whether it's sales related or just that you really love doing or people really love? To give you an idea, for us, it was birthday parties. And
Yeah.
that's really what kind of led me to go in that direction when I was choosing my own revenue focus. Because we started with open play, realized real quickly that that wasn't going to be feasible long term. And then I
Yeah.
just that wow, people love our birthday parties and we love hosting them. Our staff loves it. I love it. So that's kind of where we went. Is there any particular revenue stream that really stands out like that for you?
I would say birthday parties too for us. That I went into this all thinking we were going to be more of like a co-working space, not necessarily childcare, but birthday parties were kind of, I mean, honestly inspired by you and saying like, you have to have this to make this work. And I'm so happy we did because they bring me a lot of joy. There's something we've had, I don't know, 20 plus over the last 4 months, and I've only missed one. I usually work all of them, and it's what I enjoy working. We have a full staff that I can trust and does everything else and does it well. But I know birthday parties, we haven't had one customer walk out and be upset. Most of them are just overjoyed and so happy. And I know we go above and beyond and do a lot of things um, that people don't think of. And it's hard for me. I'm still working on translating that to our staff and, okay, when they're about to open the presents, you need to ask the mom or the dad, can I have your phone to take photos, and let them, like, whatever you need to do to make sure they are ingrained in the the party kids experience. Try to take everything off. And so I'm still trying to figure that out personally, but I enjoy it. So I love birthday parties. I think our staff enjoys working them. At first they were really hesitant, and then they did it. They're like, "Wait, this is really great. Everyone's here for the same purpose. Everyone's usually happy, and it's, they're pretty fun." So, I would say birthday parties are definitely our um I don't want to be a birthday space, because I think I went into this serving um feeling frustrated as a working parent that there were no options for my family to go play on the weekends. And so all of the, like, play spaces here were just open on the weeks, and then they were closed on the weekends for birthday parties, which I know why. Now being on the back end of it, but we I would love to lean into birthday parties without sacrificing the time that we've allotted, if that makes sense, for open play. So right now we do birthday parties on the weekends. We're open 7 a.m. every day, 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., which I think sets us apart from anywhere else to be open at 7. Um, and then Saturday, Sunday, 7 a.m. to 1:30. Then we do parties 2 to 4 and 5 to 7.
I love that you're thinking about that. And birthday parties are one of the most popular revenue streams just to kind of lean on, especially when you're really looking for that sales boost, because doing just a couple birthday parties can be the equivalent of serving hundreds of people in open play. So it's easier to
Mhm.
just make a small handful of sales and
Yeah.
make those handful of customers happy and make those conversions instead of having to get hundreds of people in your space. So it makes
Mhm.
it a lot less of an effort up front, even if you're spending
Yeah.
money on advertising for birthday parties, things like that. It makes it a lot easier on your end, especially because you are a busy lady, you're working full time.
Mhm.
So once you get those ads up and running, whether it's Google ads or Facebook and Instagram ads, I think that's really going to help. But can you talk to me a little bit about, I know you can only do 4 birthday parties a weekend, but what
Mhm.
percentage of those are currently booked? Just so I have an idea of where you're starting so we can talk about where you're
Yeah.
going.
That's a good question. I don't know, moving forward. I know, like, I was just in the part of the course where I looked at how many, like, our average booking in the last 30 days, and that was 7. Um, for the last 30 days, we've had 7 parties booked for September, October, November, December. Um, I mean, and that's 50, almost 50% of what our weekend capacity is. And we could also, I mean, this is something that's available online, but I have not really emphasized it or done anything with it. We're open during the week, 7 a.m. to 4:30. We could have a party 5 to 7, or 5:30 to 7:30. You could technically go on and book it right now. It's available, but I haven't, like, said $50 off for weekday parties. And maybe I feel like that's something I should start to do, well, because really we have the capacity for not just 4 birthday parties, we have the capacity for 9 during the whole week.
During the winter, I think those weekday slots are going to be a lot more popular, especially around those holiday weeks. It seems
Yeah.
counterintuitive, but when people are planning holiday visits, people are going to be in town that normally wouldn't be. So, for example, even if a child's birthday party is like mid-December, if people are in town for Thanksgiving, a lot of times they'll want to book a weekday party so
Yeah.
grandma can be there, so aunts and uncles can be there, things like that. So making
Yeah.
people not just aware of that when they book the party, but also just making sure people understand that on social media that you are available during the week, I think is
Yeah.
going to be really helpful. But people really didn't start booking our weekday slots until we started booking our most popular weekend time slots up, until we had that
Hmm.
scarcity a little bit. So don't get
Yeah,
discouraged
yeah,
if you're not getting consistent weekday bookings, but they will come even if you don't
yeah,
offer a huge discount. They will come
yeah.
once those super popular Saturday and Sunday spots start going.
Hmm.
And you don't necessarily have to offer a discount. That's what a lot of people will do, and it's something that you can try. But if your pricing is already really reasonable and you don't want to cut into your profit margin anymore, or if you're having trouble staffing weeknight parties or anything like that, you can also
Yeah.
consider throwing in like a bonus for weekday parties. Like for
Mm.
example, a lot of people will do like unlimited coffee bar or maybe an activity or a craft or something like that for weekday parties.
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of times, in my experience, the people who are booking the weekday parties, and again, holiday weeks are kind of an anomaly. We would get a lot of like baby toddler parties during holiday weeks, but in general,
Hmm.
weekday parties were kind of the older kids because
Yeah.
their weekends were busy with sports or other activities or something like that. So they were really the ones booking like the 5 to 7 parties, because that's also just not really a good time for babies and infants.
Yeah.
So because of
They,
that, the concern, because our facility was really more geared towards the younger kids, the concern was always, are they going to be occupied? Is their attention going to be held because they are, 6 and 7 year olds? So adding
mhm.
on that activity for us really helped kind of get people off the fence and actually
Oh,
booking
yeah.
those night parties more, because it tackled that
Yeah.
big objection that people were feeling that, oh, I love this facility, it's right down the street, but I think the kids are a little bit too old for it. If they were already on the fence and considering it, but they just needed that little extra push, having that free craft or activity or whatever you decide to throw in, whether it's something for the
Mhm.
kids or something for parents, I think is really smart and something you can try as well.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I think it's funny because for the older kids, a lot of times we'll have parents when they book say like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring a craft or I'm gonna do something," and then they don't. They get here and it's too much, and they just and the kids have a great time. I mean, they play for an hour and a half and they love it and they want to keep playing. But yeah, that getting over the hump of like they'll enjoy it. You just, what else can we pair with it? Um, I love that idea. And I think right now what I have been working on in our kind of our funnel and getting people in, just getting their date set, um, is I we have Roller. We just transitioned to Roller from Clover Cagilio about 2 months ago now, which has been a great transition for us. Roller, it's worked out well. But we're able to make different checkouts. And so I have a checkout that's kind of our main checkout page, but then I also just made a birthday checkout specifically. And so that link, when you go to book a party, it doesn't show open play stuff. It doesn't show all the other options. It just shows here are your 5 birthday party options. And I also just added what I'm calling book now, plan later. Just it's always been a thing. Like we've always said, if you want to pick the sandbox option or like our lowest package, that's fine. You can always upgrade later. Just get your date set. And so now I've made it very obvious. Like, here's the option. Just get the deposit in, save your date. We'll figure everything out later. So now we have technically 4 options. Book now, plan later are 3 different levels of party options. And then I put a last one on there, which I have not shared, or I just did this a few days ago, which is like special events, have a baby shower, have book a private family reunion, a private play date, those kind of things, which is just equivalent to what our smallest package is. Um, I think those things would be great for weekday bookings, and I just need to actually share it with the world. I have all these ideas, and sharing it with the world is the hardest part of like, how do I get it out there?
Absolutely. And you touched
And
on a lot there. So before you get into anything else, I
yeah,
want to there's a bunch of stuff that I want to address that you talked about because you brought up so
yeah.
many good points. But just real quickly, because that's what you left off on, I knew in my heart that our space would be a really great like birthday party venue, or excuse me, not birthday party, baby shower venue, or maybe not like a big baby shower, but like a sprinkle, because that meant that there were already kids. So there needed to be a space for the kids to be occupied while they celebrated the
Mm-hmm.
vacation. But it's always hardest to get that first booking So what
Hmm.
we did to kind of help people envision their event in our space is we did a community baby shower. And what that
Yes, I've seen those.
I bought all the decorations. I knew it would be, I knew a lot of the decorations. Like, for example, we got linen tablecloths. We made it a little bit more upscale than it would be for a regular birthday party. And they were
Hmm.
blue and pink. And I kind of went all out. I set it up for a baby shower. I took tons of pictures before I put like little flowers on each table. Again, a little bit different of a decor style. We did the table set up a little bit differently. And I took a ton of pictures for marketing assets. And then we
Hmm.
invited people kind of just for like a babies and brunch type event. So it was open to the public. They had to buy tickets. But the tickets were a lot cheaper, and their admission was really bringing something, bringing a baby item from the quote unquote registry. But the registry was
Hmm.
just the wish list for our local women and children shelter. So
Hmm.
it wasn't for us, obviously. It was
Yeah.
for our local women's and children's shelter so we could give back to our community. People could come knowing that they were doing something great. And the benefit to us was that we were able to give all of this benefit to the community, get people into our space, and also take all of
Hmm.
these amazing
That's all
pictures
photos.
to and
Yeah.
of baby showers. And I have to say that really did it. We
Yeah.
didn't say, oh, these pictures are from our community baby shower because there weren't people in
Hmm.
them. It was just our space set up really nice. And it was nice because I got to control the way it was set up. It wasn't
Yeah.
somebody else's setup. So I didn't have to ask permission for anything. I just, I set aside that time and took a ton of pictures. And that really, really helped. So
Love
anytime
that.
you feel like you want to start doing a certain type of event or something like that, just do it, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for charity, or whether
Hmm.
it's family, friend, or anything like that. Take the
Yeah.
pictures because people are so visual these days. They need to see
Definitely.
it before they can believe that it's possible. So if
Yeah.
you're struggling with people not really thinking of your space as a venue for those types of events, you kind of have to force it, kind of have to spoon
Hmm.
feed it to them. And again, there are so many ways to mitigate the costs so that you're not just
Yeah.
doing like a styled shoot, you're still
Yeah.
making money, or in this case, it was giving back to the community. But that is my
Yeah.
best advice is find a way to get as many visual assets as possible because those types of events, whether it's a reunion, whether it's a baby sprinkle, or in our case in the fall, we had a really slow September just because of where we were
Mhm.
located. Everybody's still trying to get outside. We did a lot of
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills game like watch parties where people would rent out our space
Hmm.
for a couple hours on an afternoon where we didn't have a party booked. And they would invite, 20 families, the kids would play, the
Right.
adults would watch football. We had to do it ourselves first with our neighbors, take tons of pictures, show the adults
Yeah.
sitting around the TV and the kids playing and things like that. We had to show people what it looked like in order for them to make that kind of connection in their mind. So
Mhm.
fall and winter specifically are great times for those events, especially on those
Yeah.
holiday weeks. And of course, you don't want to give up your most valuable party slots for something like a 4 hour watch party. But in September, where we
Hmm.
had a bunch of gaps in our schedule, that
Yeah.
was really, really helpful. And you can utilize those marketing assets, not just for this season, but for the next year and the next year and the next year.
Mhm.
So that can be
Yeah.
really helpful because
Love that.
winter is such a wonderful time because we can kind of coast a little bit. We can relax. We can breathe a little bit because we don't have to
Yeah.
rely as much on doing the little classes and events to pay our bills. The traffic is
Yeah.
just there. People naturally book, people naturally come in. But the problem is sometimes people coast too much. They relax a little bit too much and they don't take advantage enough of all that traffic. So they're not doing the
Yeah.
weeknight parties. They're not going above and beyond and making sure to get those extra event bookings. So whenever I tell people who live in states like ours that have true
Hmm.
seasons, do
Yeah.
not sleep on the amount of extra revenue that you can make during those super high traffic weeks, especially like Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving week, especially, we did a
Yeah.
party Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not Thursday, but Friday, like every weeknight, because
Hmm.
no, we didn't have to do it to pay our bills, but being able to put any additional money in savings for the summer season was
Yeah.
incredibly helpful because you're not going to be able to rely on that same traffic during summer season. And what's also great about holiday weeks, this is kind of off topic, but a lot of people are like, well, I really want to take advantage of it, but that's a lot of staff. What's great about those holiday weeks is all the kids are home from college. So
Yeah.
if
Yep.
we had staff that had to quit to go to school or to do something else, a lot of times they're home for break. And, they're
Mhm.
not going out partying with their friends until like 9, 10 o'clock at night. So they would love
Yeah.
to pick up like a 5 to 8 shift, do a birthday
Yeah.
party, get, a little tip, and then go out with their friends and just make a little
Hmm.
extra cash while they're home. So that was
Yeah.
something that we really relied on is kind of our seasonal staff that would go off to school, but then come back and just work a couple birthday parties and then go back to school. So that was really nice for us.
Yeah. We have one of those right now. Her last day was yesterday. She's going to college next week. And so,
Reach
yes,
out
and
and
she
say,
is very excited about coming back.
yeah, I was gonna say, reach out ahead of time and say, obviously you don't have to um, put the high pressure on or anything, but just let them know that,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna have a couple shifts available. Let us know if you're interested, or even if you
Mhm.
have friends that are interested, because a lot of times for those parties in particular, you really just need one person that is fully trained. The other
Yeah.
person can just kind of be a set of hands. So clearing
Yeah.
plates, doing things that are obvious where they don't need to know how to operate your coffee machine or know, how every
Mhm.
little, how your point of sale system works. A lot of times you just need an extra set of hands. Especially if it's just something low pressure like a family reunion and it's not like a first birthday
Mhm.
party or a big milestone. So
Yeah.
relying on those connections.
Yeah. That's kind of how we operate right now is I'm kind of the person that knows how to do it all. Not that our high schoolers know how to do a significant amount of things, but they're kind of my extra set of hands. Um, and yeah, the parties definitely we can get away with that of like, oh, just go do that, and take care of those things. I love that. I think we actually are hosting a baby shower for our managers' friends, and so I offered it to her for free. It's on a Friday night, and I need to remember take lots of photos. I get so like ingrained in all the other stuff that I like, take the photos um, and have those ready to go. But I love the community shower event too because that would be. I think people would love that. I how I've seen it done before is like adopting moms to be to do the community shower and I was kind of like felt awkward about that like well how do I find moms that need this and how do we balance that so I like having it's just going to a shelter or a place that has their own wish list instead of specific people so
Yeah, and what's great is
awesome.
that a lot of times the things on their wish list are things that people have already lying around, like a box of an unopened box of diapers or
Mhm.
outfits with tags on them, or even just children's books that can be used or toys that can be used. A
Yeah.
lot of times it's a very approachable way for people to give back, and it's a way for you to get people in your space. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but speaking of
For
birthday
sure.
parties specifically, it sounds like yes, you want to get more bookings, but something else that I would really focus on because it sounds like you have a lot of opportunity is before you even start to lean into getting more bookings, because it sounds like you're doing everything right. You're taking the ads course, you have that mindset. I would also think about streamlining and maximizing the time between the booking and the party as much as possible, especially because you have your new system set up. So, what I
Yeah.
would focus on, again, even before you start focusing on the additional bookings, is focus on your average revenue per party as much as possible. So, really figure out how you can upsell to the most number of add ons, how you can empower your team to talk about the add-ons to again take as many marketing assets of the extra features that you have, whether it's activities or whether it's a coffee bar or whether it's a balloon garland or something like that. Work on your
Mhm.
average revenue per party and also work on your profit margins because that's also really going to help you once you have all of those extra bookings in. Because
Yeah.
like I said, what's great about parties is that just a couple can be a complete game changer for the month, but kind
Mhm.
of doing that foundational work, making sure you're really not just and I hate to think of it as like milking as much revenue out of every party as possible. I instead like to
Yeah.
think of it as making their experience as amazing as possible, because a lot of
Mhm.
times what I found when I talk to people about their birthday party business, especially if they're people who are already kind of at capacity in terms of how many parties they can host, but they're still not making enough money, a lot of times they're missing out on so much revenue just in upsells. And a lot of times it's
Mhm.
just lack of education. So people will bring in
Yeah.
balloons not knowing that they could have added them on. Or they'll
Yeah.
bring in, like you said, they'll stress themselves out bringing in a craft or activity when they could have just given us $50 and we could
Yeah.
have, come up with something that's even more creative that they don't have to touch, that they don't have to organize. So I would
Yeah.
really focus on what you're doing between that booking time, because especially because you're advertising it as like book now, plan later. Make sure you
Mhm.
are really figuring out your touch points, how many times you're reaching out, what you're saying, figure out what works, figure out
Yeah.
what doesn't work, what you're comfortable doing. Like I always
Mhm.
sent an email, and then if I didn't get a response back, I'd follow up with a call. Some people don't really like calling, some people have different methods
Mhm.
of communication. So figure out
Yeah.
what works best, because then when those extra bookings do come in, when you are ready to advertise and when you are ready to put yourself out there a little bit more, when you do have more marketing assets, it's going to help you again really maximize each party slot, because you're only working with 4 a week, which,
Yeah.
isn't necessarily bad in itself, but it really puts a little bit more pressure on you to make sure that
Mhm.
every party that you're hosting, not that you're getting the most out of it, but that you're providing them with as many services as you can so that their event is as
Yeah.
memorable and as stress free as possible. So that's something that I
Yeah,
would
I
think
think
about
I need to
too.
go back and like look at the parties and think like, okay, what could we have done? We are very fortunate that almost, I would say 95% of our parties add on a balloon garland. And I think Roller allows us really easily to be able, like, you book your party, the next page it has beautiful pictures of our garlands and all of our add-ons. But right now we have some balloon add-ons, and then we have some food add-ons, which the food add-ons aren't really a great profit margin for us because we're not a lot. I mean, the pizza, like, we're ordering and we're just basically selling it to them at cost, which maybe that's a different conversation that I should raise the price. But um I I think I need to look at the parties and think, okay, what are people bringing in that we could have just done for them? Because there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also, even though you're there for almost every party, once you start to step back a little, make sure you're involving your staff in those conversations as well. Because, we only have so much brain power, especially since, you're also working full time. You also are doing all of these other things in your life. They might have really cool ideas that they've just picked up on working the parties and just talking to people, being at the front desk every day. They just hear conversations happening. Maybe they've attended other birthday parties. I always, at the beginning, I really underestimated how creative my staff could be. I kind of assumed that, oh, they're busy, they don't care, but they were really my greatest source of inspiration. So I always
Yeah.
tell people to lean on them as much as possible, because more
Yeah.
opinions, more perspectives are better than just one.
Yeah.
So I would keep that an open conversation with staff as well, because they may be noticing things or they may have thought of things that you haven't yet.
Yeah. Did you have any, so right now, like, our staff, we have a full-time manager and she's here Monday through Friday. She actually has been with us since September. We kind of stole her from our daycare. She was our daycare teacher. We stole her. So she's been with us for a long time. She kind of knows my brain for the most part, which has been great. But she works Monday through Friday. Our parties are Saturday, Sunday. So we kind of have a different, other than the high schoolers that work both, we kind of have a different set of staff for the weekend. We actually have some adults that work full time during the week, and then they like, one's a teacher, one's a ABA respite therapist, and so they work for us on the weekends. And I've noticed, like, our manager who's supposed to be selling the parties during the week, no idea what happens on parties on the weekends because she's not here. And that kind of came to light the other day. She came back and she had a phone call and she was like, I just want to triple check that people can bring their own food in for parties, right? And I was like, that is like thing number one for our parties. How do you not know that? But it's on me. It's not on her. Like I just I don't know how. Well, I do know how. I need to take the time to like put something together. Here's all the FAQs. Here's all the things that my staff needs to know in order to sell a party, and really helping them become salespeople at parties. And I guess that I know what I need to do, but the path to get there is a little bit rocky. And also, like, in the priority grand scheme of things, it is a priority. It has to be a priority in order to sell parties. But um, trying to figure out how do I get them up to speed? And maybe that's like, you need to work a party or two over the weekend and, work it with me and get a feel for it.
And I mean, I don't know if you necessarily have to do that because unfortunately, a lot of times when people have those positions, the main draw is that they don't have to work on weekends. So you don't
Weekends.
want
Yeah.
to disrupt that balance. But
Yeah.
even if it's temporary, what I would do to make them a little bit more invested is I would put some incentive behind it.
Yeah.
So make them want to know every single detail in and out. And again, it doesn't have to be something that you commit to long term. It could be maybe like a fall thing that you do. And there are different ways that people do this. So obviously, the first and easiest way is to just build some sort of bonus into every
Mhm.
single party that they booked, whether it's a $5 bonus, a $10 bonus, something like that. And a lot of people will hear that and say, well, a $10 bonus, like that's nothing, like it's not going to move the needle. But if somebody is an
That does.
hourly employee and they're working a 5 hour day, if they book one party and they're getting a $10 bonus, that's a $2 per hour raise. And that's really
Mhm.
significant. And when you break it down that way, like, sure, it's $10 to us as a business owner who has to make $20,000 a month. Like, sure, it feels like a
Mhm.
drop in the bucket, but a $2 per hour raise is something that is really significant to somebody that gets paid hourly. So
Yeah.
I would really think about what you can do to incentivize it again, even if it's a temporary promotion, because for us, this time period right now, we're recording this in August, was extremely
Mhm.
crucial because most of our winter busy season parties were booked between like August and October.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter what we were advertising in December, January, February. We were just executing at that point. Like, sure, we were promoting
Mhm.
summer camps. We were already starting to look to the summer, but our party calendar was really already booked for the winter. And we
Yeah.
really had to rely on what we were doing in August, September, and October to get that party booked. So even if it's like a 1 quarter long incentive promotion where you
Mhm.
tie some incentives to booking, like I said, you can do a just direct per booking bonus. And this could
Mhm.
be manager specific. You don't have to necessarily involve every staff member because it gets a little tricky depending on, how many hours people are working. Sometimes you have downsides like people fighting over, the cash register and things like that. So you really have
Yeah.
to figure out what feels best and what works best for your business. But it could
Yeah.
also be the team working towards a goal. So, for
Mhm.
example, let's say you have a goal to book 25 parties in 1 month
Mhm.
and you just involve everybody. And you say, hey, if we as a team book 25 parties in person in this given time range, you're all going to get a lunch out on me. Or we're
Yeah.
going to do something fun, or you're going to get a gift card, or
Mhm.
you're going to get a paid day off, or something like that. We're going to close one day and just you can get paid, and we're going to do a little retreat or something like that.
Yeah.
Every staff is different, so I'm not sure what motivates them. For some people, it's strictly money, like they just want to be
Yeah.
compensated, they just want to make more money, they just want a cash
Yeah.
bonus. But for some people, again, if they're parents, they could use a paid day off, or maybe they do want something else. Maybe they
Mhm.
love food. Everybody's motivated by different things, and only you can know what's going to work for your staff. But having a
Yeah.
team goal to work towards makes people work together. It makes it less of a selfish process, so people aren't fighting over the cash register. It doesn't really matter who books the party. It just matters that the party gets booked. So that's another way. You can also do individual goals. So, for example, you can create kind of tailored goals for everybody on your team. So if your manager is working the most, her goal might be a little
Okay.
bit higher. And if she reaches her
Yeah.
goal, she gets X incentive. If employee A reaches her goal, she gets that incentive. You can kind of tailor goals based on how often people are working, what their schedule looks like, what their capacity is, things like that. Um, but tying some incentive, unfortunately, is going to be the best way to really get
Yeah.
people to be self-motivated, to learn all the ins and outs, to work on their own sales script, right? Because if they're not,
Mhm.
as highly motivated as they could be, sure, they're going to go through the motions, they're going to answer the questions, they're going to do their job, but they
Yeah.
might not be as creative as they could be. They might not think outside the box as much as they could be. And
Yeah.
that's really where the magic happens when somebody is that motivated, when they have kind of a prize that they're working towards, or some sort of cash incentive that they're working towards, or some team goal that they're working towards. Some people just are
Mhm.
motivated by goals and deadlines,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
psychologically. That's where not only they start to really get creative in terms of what works and what doesn't work, that's where you kind of start to be able to gather all of that data as well. So if you do reach that goal, or if you're on track for the goal, let's say it's a quarter long goal or something like that, you can check
Yeah.
in, weekly with your manager and say, hey, are we on track? This is how many parties we booked. Tell me what worked and what didn't
Mhm.
work. Tell me what you've tried this week. Not only will
Yeah.
it give you the direct benefit of booking all of those extra parties because people are a little bit more
Mhm.
motivated, it will also be able to help clarify for you what you should be spending more focus on in your training process.
Yeah.
Maybe it's phone calls that are like the hottest leads, and you have to figure
Mhm.
out a better script for people, or maybe it's just having brochures on hand, right? You're going to figure out real quick
Yes.
what works and what doesn't work. So I
Yeah.
think having an incentive based goal, however that feels
Mhm.
right for your business, and then doing really consistent check ins with your manager and team in terms of what works and what doesn't work is going to give you both that short term benefit of getting the increased bookings, and then also the long term benefit of being able to really streamline your processes and not just find
Mhm.
out, like I said, what works. Also, are people getting hung up on something? Is there one
Yeah.
question that people are constantly asking, and is that maybe an opportunity to add to the booking process? Or maybe is there an opportunity to make your messaging a little bit more clear online? Or is that
Mhm.
something we should add to the FAQ page? Or if people are saying, well, I like this idea, but I can't picture it. Is that a picture that we need to have on the brochure?
Mhm.
Or is that something that we need to put
Yeah.
on the website? Finding out where your bottlenecks are, or where people are getting stuck, or even just what their objections are. So again, maybe you're having trouble with one particular time slot, or maybe people are getting hung up on one particular part of the booking process. That's a great
Mhm.
opportunity for you to then improve, or to create some sort of content around that objection. So for example,
Yeah.
if it's, I'm trying to think of a good example. If it's like the older kids, for example, if it's, well, I really love this venue for our party, but my, child is 5, and it feels like it's a little bit
It's
too
spread on the
young.
line.
That's a
Yeah.
great opportunity to create video content, blog content, whatever content you feel most comfortable creating. Hey,
Mhm.
here are 5 reasons to have a birthday party for your older child at our space. Number
Yeah.
one, we have, all of these slots available that you probably didn't even know about, like on weeknights.
Yeah.
And, oh, hey, we have these extra benefits if you book on a weeknight. Oh, and by the way, you may not have known this, but we have all of these different activities that you can add on. We have all of these opportunities for older
Mm.
kids. So not only is
Yeah.
it a way to improve your process, it's also a way to get inspiration for what content you should be putting out there when it comes time to do those ads. And that's why I like
Mhm.
to do this sort of organic process first, because anytime you're putting money behind something, obviously you want it to work to the best of its ability. So if you can figure
Yeah.
out where people are getting hung up, what's preventing people, if anything, from booking parties right now, those are, or what's maybe missing from your booking page, what people are still confused about, figuring out all of that
Mhm.
stuff and kind of fixing it before you start putting money behind your promotions is always going
Yeah.
to make those promotions more successful and give you a better return on your investment.
Yeah. I think that's is such a good point, and something I spent a lot of time on actually last weekend, trying to create this new kind of checkout process. One thing, I had a phone call. How everything was set up on the back end, when you went to look, it said like there were 51 spots left. And really what that meant was there's 50, like you book for 50 people plus the one spot for the actual party. And so it said 51 spots. And so somebody called and they were like, well, wait, I thought this was 100% private. Like, why are there 51 spots left? I was like, oh. So I redid all of the back end of our parties so it didn't look like that anymore. And did it kind of a non-traditional route with roller, which is fine, but that it's one of those things that was like, it was a low hanging fruit. Like somebody was just getting caught up because they saw 51. That's confusing. And that caused them, at least one person, to call. I don't know how many people are out there that just stopped and froze. And like, I might have been one of those people that was just like froze. And to me, that was not obvious in my view of it because I know the back end and I know that when you click, your one package plus 50 people, then it zeroes it all out. But finding those other opportunities, I think, will be interesting and something I need to figure out. How do I like whole people that have been through our booking process or maybe have started to go through our booking process and stopped, and why? Um, and something that just came to mind as you were talking about kind of the older kids, I feel like we do have a lot of content of younger kids. Um, but the older kids thinking a lot of times those parties, most of the parents say, oh, this is our first party, like friends party, our first party where we're inviting all the preschool, the whole class to the party. And something that um I think is a perk of ours that I don't think we probably talk about enough is we don't like pay per kid. It's you reserve the whole space and you get 50 people, no matter if it's 49. Well, I hope it's not 49 kids and one adult. That wouldn't be good. But no matter the ratio of adults to children, it's I think it's a really great spot for those older 4, 5, 6-year-old parties that are inviting their whole class because you don't have to pay per kid. It's not like, oh, Jimmy, you only get 10 kids. You can only, you have to only pick 10. Um, we don't do that. And so I need to emphasize that more and kind of share that's a differentiator for us for those older kids, especially.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I think that's a really good point is finding what those differentiators are for you, training your staff on them. So it kind of almost becomes a cycle. Because if one person notices something, again, not everybody else may have noticed it. So keeping everyone in the
Mhm.
loop, making sure that if there are those low hanging fruit options or things that people were confused about, or if you got a call and were able to clear it up, make sure you communicate that with your staff as well. And again, the best way to get them to care and listen is to incentivize them to do so above and beyond
Yeah.
what they're already getting compensated. Again, even if it
Yeah.
has to be short term, it is going to give you that long term benefit. But as owners, a lot of times we get so wrapped up in everything that we forget to share, or we do that like knowledge hoarding thing.
Yeah.
So just be careful about that as well, because it can be,
Mhm.
we think that, oh, we're protecting them. Like they don't need to know about this little back end change I made, but who knows? Maybe they've
Yeah.
actually answered that question five
Right.
times.
Actually, none of them know about it. I did it last week and I haven't told anyone, which that goes to a different point. Like, how did you have monthly staff meetings? How did you communicate with your staff? Because I feel like right now I'm here all the time. They cannot, like, our manager pops back here all the time to ask me questions, or I can pop up there. I feel like I communicate with them individually, but it's not like I have hey, here are the three things I need to tell you. In every person. Maybe I told two people and I didn't tell the other two, or there's things that are always changing with these 4 months we had one staff meeting and maybe I just need to like going into fall, say the second Tuesday of every month. That's when our staff meeting is and put it on the calendar. So right now we don't have that.
So that's a great question, and it's difficult because our business was very similar to yours in that we kind of had like a weekday staff and a weekend staff, and they didn't overlap very often. So what I found was most effective is we did have a monthly staff meeting. However, I met with our manager weekly, and for me, I'm like a very visual person, and I was also raising very young kids at the time, so I couldn't rely on my own brain to verbally communicate things to people. So what my manager and I would do in our weekly meetings is we would come up with the list of what people needed to know. So what happened this week? What did we learn? What's changed? Kind of like the what's what of the
Hmm.
business. And again, I really tried to not, overdo it with the mundane, like, oh, we switched vendors for our sugar packets. Like that has no
Yeah.
implication on anybody's life on the weekend. But if it was
Uh-huh.
something like that, if you clarified something on the website, if you added a new add-on for birthday parties, if you changed the price of something, if you're launching a new event and people are going to start getting questions about it, because that's another thing
Mhm.
is a lot of people assume that, oh, what's happening during the week isn't ever going to come up on the weekend. But a lot of times those party hosts are going to get questions like, oh, I saw on social media that you have this class that's happening. And they go, what? Like, I'm just a party
Wow.
host. I don't know what's going on. So for
Yeah.
me, the best way to kind of make sure everybody was always on the same page is to come up with that weekly newsletter or weekly what's what. For us, it
Mhm.
was just a PDF that I made in Canva. I updated it every week with everything that people needed to know. And what was so nice is that I could just go in and update it at any time. And then I just sent it out with a schedule so that
Okay.
people, just they didn't have to wait for two separate notifications from me, because you have to be really careful when you have part-time employees about what
Mhm.
you're expecting them to do outside of working hours. So we had to be
Yeah.
really clear that here's your schedule, here's the what's what, please review it next time you come in. Right? Because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's the corporate in me, is I'm always very
Mhm.
careful about, not overstepping labor laws or expecting too much of my employees. I
Yeah.
never want, a part-time high school employee to feel like they have to study this, what's what sheet on their off hours, because not
Yeah.
only is that illegal, it's also something that I never want them to feel pressure to do. So I would just be very careful to say, here's your schedule, here's what you need to know for this week. Please review it next time you
Mhm.
come in. And I would also
Yeah.
have it printed off. We had a printer on site, which was really, really helpful. So that
Yeah.
was kind of our best way to keep everybody, make sure that they were in the loop. And then if they had any questions, then they could come to me, they could go to the manager. And we kind of operated our whole business like that. So to answer your question from earlier, I don't know if we ended up getting to it, but about the manager during the week and then having that
Yeah.
separation
We
from the
can.
weekend staff, we really relied on that written documentation and communication. So we had our
Mhm.
party prep sheet. I know it's in like the resource folder, but our manager would fill it out, and it was basically every single thing the party host needed to know about the party. So what the
Yeah.
parents' names were, what the party child's name was, what the time was, because sometimes people would add on time,
Mhm.
some people would subtract time, what they've already paid, what questions they've asked, what extra things they've ordered, what the theme is, like anything they need to know
Yeah.
was on that prep sheet. And that kind of allowed the party host to just come in, they would read the prep sheet, they would, hopefully there would be no questions. Sometimes there was some confusion and they had to reach out to me. I didn't allow them
Yeah.
to reach out to the owner because, or excuse me, reach out to the manager because it was their off
Yeah.
time.
Totally
But,
fine.
I communicated enough with the manager during the week that I was fully looped in. So if there was something
Mhm.
ambiguous or something, or like a vendor didn't show up or something, they would contact me. But
Yeah.
we had our, I think it was like 3 pages. We had our prep sheet pretty much, um, at, it took time to make it perfect, but we had it pretty much down
Yeah.
to a science, in that it really bridged that communication gap between the manager and the weekend staff. And if there were any
Mhm.
invoices that they needed to attach, like if there was any special vendors coming in, if there needed to be a tip for like a character vendor coming in or something like that, all of that
Yeah.
was kind of just stapled right to that sheet or paper clipped right to that sheet. And that really helped. But really, the theme was written communication and making sure that
Mhm.
everything was completely spelled out so that we weren't playing phone tag, so that people weren't having to work
Yeah.
on their off times or anything like that. And so I didn't
Yeah.
have to be bothered constantly on the weekends, because even though you find joy in that right now, you might not always, right? You might want to go
Yeah.
on vacation, you might want to reclaim your weekends. So developing that
I think my
process,
husband would like to reclaim our weekends.
yes. So developing that process
Yeah.
now while you're still kind of in it and figuring out, okay,
Mhm.
if I was just walking in and I, put yourself in their shoes. If I was, in college all week and I couldn't have thought about this business whatsoever, what would I need to know in order to make this
Yeah.
party successful and in order to
Yeah.
do my job to the best of my ability? Figuring out that process now while you're still in it and ironing out those details is going to really help when you do go to reclaim those weekends.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think, I mean, there's a lot of parts of our, like, of roller and how it's like we can do that within the system. And I started to kind of make a little bit of those changes, but need to as far as birthday party specific um, things. I need to inform everyone else. They don't even know that it's there. I know.
Yeah,
So,
and like I said,
yeah.
make sure you are doing as much knowledge sharing as possible between the weekday and the weekend staff because like I said, we as owners, like you said, are so close to our business. We live in the back end of it, but these high schoolers, these
Mhm.
college kids, these moms that are coming in to work a couple of shifts, they have no
Yeah.
idea. They don't
Yeah.
follow every single post on Instagram. Like I used to catch myself
Yes.
doing that all the time. I'd be like, "Well, I posted about it. Like you should have seen
Yeah.
it."
Like that's how I shared it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I have to be like, no, like this isn't their job to know every single thing that's going on with the business
Mhm.
every single hour of the day. So just making
Yeah.
sure that you are doing as much knowledge sharing as possible, making it as
Mhm.
easy as possible for someone to, again, walk into their job, know exactly what's going on, know exactly what's
Yeah.
changed, know exactly what questions they may be expected to answer is the most important thing. Because like you
Mhm.
said, you might hear about it one time out of 10. So
Yeah.
there might be things going on when you're, working during the day. Some people might be calling asking about Halloween events, but nobody
Mhm.
thought to bring it up to you, or they might have questions about something that happened on the weekend or questions about parties.
Yeah.
Make sure you create that open environment for people to maybe you just have, a notebook where people can jot things down, like, oh, so and so called asking about this, or oh, I got this piece of feedback today. Make sure you
Yeah.
create that open environment where your staff feels like, you know, those things are important to you, you care about them, you
Yeah.
want to know about it. Doesn't have to be like micromanaging, but it can be like if,
Yeah.
if anything is getting repeatedly asked or if there was something that came up that you didn't feel prepared to answer, I want to know about them so I can make your job easier, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
for sure. I feel like this is something that actually my husband and I talked about this week because I got frustrated in a moment of our manager and I were talking about how our schedules are kind of changing going into the school year. We're moving some people around and she talking to her and she goes, "And are we going to be open on Christmas?" I was like, that is the furthest thing from my mind right now. Like my brain is so packed with so many things right now just for the next few weeks and you just asked me about Christmas. And so, but I need to give her a place to ask that and like give, where's like you have ideas. She asked me, "Are we doing a New Year's event? Are we doing this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing, like what I'm having for dinner tonight." And so I need like we were talking about how do we set up a place. She has a notebook right now, but maybe something that's a little bit more online. I'm just trying to get into Asana and get things more organized in there. Like, is there a kind of not a dumping ground? That sounds awful, but like a dumping ground where here's all the ideas that she has in her brain and everyone else has that they know they can go in, they can put, their idea in the future ideas column. And then we have it, kind of the bucket of moving on to the next thing. We have future ideas. Now we've moved it on to in process or we're doing it or, a little bit more organization there and giving people the tools and the spot and the place because sometimes it can't be my brain a lot of time I'm learning that it can't I have so many things in my brain that I can't hold it all and so
Yeah.
trying to
And
find the spots for it.
I know that you are super busy, so I hate to recommend
Oh,
something else that's going to take up your time, but
yeah.
something that I follow in my own business and something that I taught quite a bit about at our live event is something called the EOS or the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it is exactly that. It's a structure that you can put behind your business to, give yourself goals, give yourself action items, involve your employees, make sure everybody is working towards a common goal, and most importantly, making sure that your employees are revenue generating assets and not
Mhm.
just liabilities, not just warm
Yeah.
bodies filling positions that are going to
Yeah.
just cost you money, right? So there are so many different structures that you can put behind your business. This one was
Mhm.
developed by somebody named Gino Wickman, and there's
Oh, yeah.
a bunch of books on this topic, but the one that I recommend starting with, it's a very quick audiobook listen, especially if you're like me and you listen at like 2x speed. It's called
Yeah.
Traction. And
I feel like I've heard of that. Is he like I've done a lot of Mike McAllowitz Profit First and
mhm,
Clockwork. Do you
mhm.
know? I think he does like a foreword in one of those
Probably.
audiobooks. I know.
He's one of the big names in the business
Yeah.
education world. But his book Traction, and then he has a couple subsequent books that kind of branch off of that. But the general concept is in that book Traction. And again, there are so many different business structure options to choose from. This is just the one that resonates best with me because I'm like you, where get all of these ideas, but I get analysis paralysis. And if there
Yes,
is too much going on, if I have
so
too many
much.
ideas, I just end up using almost procrastination as like a tool. Like, yeah, we're going to brainstorm, but then nothing ever happens. Or, we have
Mhm.
all these goals, and then the 90-day comes, and I'm like, well, did we meet all these goals? Not really, because we were too busy, brainstorming, or we were too busy, doing these other things. So it just
Yep.
really helps me put structure behind my thoughts, ideas, goals, and it helps you live in a 90-day world, which is a little bit
Yeah.
more practical. I know it's still quite a far way out. However, it also teaches you to set those 90-day goals, but also meet weekly, whether it's with your manager or whether it's with your whole team. The downside is a lot of what he talks about is geared towards like 9 to 5 businesses. So we have to kind of
Okay.
translate a lot of what he teaches for a business that has that separation of staff. So for
Yeah.
me, it was just something that I did with my manager, but it really helps you again have that structure and really helps you prioritize what's important, what's not important, what is something that can wait till next quarter, what's something that we need to focus on right now, and how
Yeah.
can we really quantify if we're actually moving towards these goals or not. So I can't recommend that book enough. Um,
Yeah. I love that. I
and
feel like
like
right
I
now
said,
we're living in like the week, like literally, I'm just living day to day, like just trying to get through this day to get through the next day. And that's something that I mean, it's not detrimental, but it's not helping because we need to be planning ahead. It feels like we get like tomorrow is the 17th. I really wanted to have a big back to school event and I got analysis paralysis. I wanted to do it and then it just never happened. And so I'm just not planning or planning far enough ahead and need to get into that mode of
yeah, and it's to me, it
looking
was
towards the
really
future.
surprising how simple it was to actually implement and how, again, superficial some of the mindset shifts were, but
Mhm.
it was a big like aha moment for me, a big light bulb moment for me once I started learning about again the different systems that you can put in the foundation of your business. So that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
I still use it. It's how I approach every single thing is this EOS or entrepreneurial operating system. So I
Yeah.
can't recommend that enough, especially for someone who really wants to make sure that because you have limited time, you want to make sure that everything you're working on has purpose, is
Yes.
strategic,
Yeah.
is the best thing that you could be working on. Because I was very similar to you in that I had a very limited amount of time. And it's so hard to go through the days where you were so busy all day, but did you actually make progress? Did you
Yeah.
actually do anything that was going to make more money? Or did you just do busy work all day? The
Yeah.
EOS system really helps you feel like, okay, I know everything that I did today, or at least 80% of what I did today moved me closer to this goal. And it helps give you that
Mm.
perspective between like the money making tasks versus the busy tasks. And it helps you
Yeah.
outsource what you need to, keep what you need to. So, again, I can't recommend that enough.
Yeah, definitely. I'm adding it to the list of all the things. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on time and I don't want to take too much of your time up, but these are all amazing suggestions. I feel like we could talk for hours, but
I know, but it was so great to
we
talk to you.
can.
And I am so excited to follow along with your business journey. I'm so lucky that you're in Playmaker
Yeah.
Society.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see how all of this plays out, see more amazing parties and baby showers and weeknight events and things like that happening at your space.
Mm,
Because I know once you finish that ads course, you're already going to be in an amazing position to accept
yeah.
those bookings and again, really make the most out of every single time slot that you have. So thank you so much for your time and energy
Yes.
today.
Thank you for yours. I'm so excited for you to go into your next chapter with 3 kiddos. That's so exciting.
Thank you very much. By the time this episode comes out, hopefully everyone is, happy, healthy, and we're all very much settled. So thank you very much.
Yes, of course. Thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too. All right, that wraps up my conversation with Natalie. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you want to give Natalie's business a follow, I've linked everything in the video description, her Instagram, her website, all of that. And if you like these coaching calls, please let me know in the comments if there's any other topics that you'd like me to cover on this channel or any questions that you'd like answered. I am all ears. All right, I will see you soon. Bye for now.